To make, for example, bolt heads like this one, now not this one but this one has to stay circular. To make bolt heads like this one, most of the time I use the dividing head. But using this thing, the time of setup is of course way longer than the cutting time itself. Which normally is not really a problem because I cut maybe 2 or 3 bolt heads per year, so who cares. But now that I work more and more for the railroad and to make special bolts that are not off the shelf, of course I will need to cut more. And in the last couple of videos some of you commented that it should be way easier to use a collet block. And of course, as always, you're right. It's just that I don't have a collet block. But I have these collets, a whole collection. These are the typical Deckel FP1 collets. They have a special name that I can't remember, but whatever. So, project of today is to make a collet block. My idea is to use this thing, and of course my collet has to fit in here. Cut a piece off, make it to length, make it hex, and then of course a nut to make it nice and tight. And because these Deckel collets have this special buttress thread, I think they call it, of course I need a special cutting tool to cut it in my future nut here. That I made already without you. This is an angle of 5 degrees one side and 45 the other side. Of course I have to cut off this little piece here, but I suppose you already noticed. I will start with what I think is a little bit more complicated part of this build, and it is of course the nut, because here is a little problem of work holding. Now I would like to have a hex here on this side, and the ideal way to do this is of course in a collet block. But okay, I will do it of course here in the dividing head. Right, my idea is to turn down a little bit this diameter that it fits in this collet, and this one of course fits in here. Put my part in here, make a hex and then cut it off and then bore it out and cut the thread. Let's go for it. I would like this socket to fit on here. Now this is a 30mm socket, and instead of making very complicated calculations to determine the outer diameter of this thing here, I just took my calipers and I measured across the points, so the biggest distance here. That's all. Now I would like to use this one because this one I use also on the lathe and on the press. The future nut is installed. I installed a homemade one flute cutting thing in here, and because this setup works very well, but it's not the king of rigidity. Let's see, maybe it's gonna be too violent and I have to change cutters, but we will find out together. Nope. This setup is clearly not rigid enough to use only one cutter. So let's try this one. This one is a viewer gift, 16mm, 4 flute, brand new, never used before. Much better. Oh yeah. Good. And that's how it looks like after a little touch of 3-phase deburring tool. Very handy. And I think this thing is long enough to make 2 or maybe 3 nuts out of it. Of course I need only 1, which means I have 1 or maybe 2 screw-up nuts. You never know. Right, let's cut a piece off. I don't think so. I'm sure we can find a better way. I've never been very lucky with parting off. So let's try again. And to make it a little bit easier on me, I already drilled a hole in here. Let's go for it. Huh, easy. I'm all set up to start cutting this thread in here. Now I didn't make any calculations, so it will be a little bit a trial and error thread, but I can always test fit. Let's go for it. It's bozo time! Because a thread cutting tool is of course a form tool, which means that the cut you make is gonna take the shape of the tool you made. And I made this cutting tool. Angle 5 degrees, 45 degrees. But I saw that my thread started to look like nothing. And then I figured out what was wrong. I need a tool that is 45 degrees and 5 degrees. That's not the same. So I made a new one, and of course this is the old one, not good, and this is the new one, hopefully good. Let's cut this piece off and give it a try. Success! Of course I had to do several spring passes to make it fit, because of my cutting tool is a little bit flexible. But now I think this will work just fine. Right, let's start maybe this thing. This here has to fit in here, and of course make it hex shape. And to do so, I think I'm gonna do the same that I did on this one. For the nut, of course. Turn down this diameter so that it fits here in this collet. And then I can cut the hex over to the lathe. That's good. Maybe the other side better. Yes. If you look at it as is, it could be considered a waste of material here. But because there is the keyway in here and it is rather deep, of course this depth I also gonna lose on the other side and all around. So the useful material is way smaller than it seems this way. So all I lose after when I finished is this little thingy here. I left it as big as possible. This is now 42 millimeters. And as you can see, it looks way smaller without too much waste. Right, let's make a hex out of it, put it in here. And this should be it. That looks good. Now, of course, this is not the most precise system to make a collet block. It should be way better to first of all do all the internal features in here, which means making the bore, that this shank here fits perfectly fine in here, and of course the taper. And after we can, for example, install it between two centers and then of course mill the hex shape. But to do so I need two different centers. One with a diameter bigger than this one, that can go in here, and the other side even bigger than this one to hold it on this side, of course. That I don't have. The problem with the system I use here, so of course first make the hex and then put in the lathe and bore it out, it will be way less precise because of the chuck. The chuck is never perfectly centered. There's always a little bit deviation. But I'm not chasing microns here. This thing I'm gonna use it to make bolt heads. That's all. Now, if a bolt head is a few microns off, who cares? I drilled all the way through with 16 millimeter, and I bored it out with my little boring bar at 20 because that's what I need. But because of the stick out of my tool here, I can bore more than half. Now this is my collet and the fit in here is almost perfect, so that's good, but only halfway. Now I had to bore it out because I don't have a drill bit 20. But I have this also viewer gift 20 millimeter end mill. So maybe I can bore it out using this one. The problem is how to hold this thing in center, because of course it doesn't fit in a drill chuck. But luckily I have here a center that I made some time ago and that I never use because I have a way better one. Now if I take this point out and maybe I can figure something out to make this thing fit in here, because of course this is a Morse taper 3 like this one, and I will make this thing here on the USSR lathe because the Morse taper in the spindle here is also a number 3. Okay, I admit I cheated. I didn't use my old live center. All I did was flip the part around and board from the other side. And that is exactly what I didn't want to do, because of course we're gonna lose concentricity. But after a little bit of fiddling, I think this fit is close to perfect. That's nice. Now all that's left to do is of course cut this taper in here. I made a mark here on the jowl and of course also on my part, so I can install it again how it was before. Let's hope it works. To assure a bit better results, I'm gonna shorten this stick out here. A little bit more. From now on, it's official. I have a collet block. And I think it came out very well. Of course, collet fits in here. Now, I forgot to mention the reason why this diameter inside has to be 20 millimeter is because of this part, shiny thingy here, is gonna serve for the alignment. If this bore is too big, my collet will go a little bit everywhere where it doesn't have to go. So this alignment, very good. And of course the beautiful little nut. And of course I think now it's time to give it a try. I don't need any hex bolt heads for the moment, so I will make a very small one on this piece of nothing. It works!